Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is JP Williams. I am the Montana GEG Google Education Group global leader. I'm here today, super excited, so honored to be helping to facilitate this discussion and this much needed voice that needs to be lifted up. This is the Voices Project. And the Voices Project is a Google Global Education initiative to strengthen and to lift the voices of Indigenous Native American people. I hope everyone can hear me. I know that technology can bounce left and right, and you might see me freeze up. That's okay. I have a lot of people here who will take over. We're all used to the Zoom meetings, the YouTube meetings. We're all used to that. I'm super excited. I want to describe just the purpose offhand, and then we're going to get into the introduction. Then we're going to get right into what we have to accomplish today to lift the voice of St. Stephen's Indian School and the community of St. Stephen's, Wyoming. I'm trying to stay in the seat because I can literally jump through the roof. I'm so excited. The purpose of our project here is really to develop the continuum and a foundation of support for Indigenous and Native American students, for families, for educators, and we're doing this through our virtual education platform. This platform, the success is going to be based upon the belief that all Indigenous, Native American communities and their people, they are important. They play a vital role in world peace and the entire development of humanity. And support for these platforms are based on technology. So there's a technology aspect to education that we're using now. Also, another secondary platform, and it may be the primary platform, is the celebration of Native American and Indigenous culture. And then finally, the third platform is the educational attainment piece. So what it actually takes for students, families, educators to actually make sure there's attainment. We have some incredible leaders here with us today. So let's get into our introductions right off the bat. Oh, before we do that, I do want to say thank you to my global GEG team. You'll see in the background there's some graphic work by our teacher of the year, Stephanie Rothstein. She is actually teaching right now, like 5 different classes. So she's not going to be here, but she is here in spirit and graphic. We also have Stacy Klein, who's a wonderful educator, technology guru. She's our studio manager and just our support line. Thank you, Stacy, for being here. And we have Gerardo Navarrete. And Gerardo is from a whole nother part of the world, down in Central America, and it looks like sunshine and smiles all day long. He is another manager of our studio, just incredible people. Bonnie Chalet is another global leader, is going to join us in a bit. She's down in Louisiana, making sure that kids are getting what they need. She'll join us. But our guests today and our speakers, whoa. I mean, this is like, if you remember the movie Space Jam, and Michael Jordan's on the team. And if I were going to go with a team, man, this is the team I'm going to go with, and they're going to win every time. Today we have Frank No Runner, Superintendent Frank No Runner. Please just introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are. They should already know, but they don't.
Hello, my name is Frank Norner. I'm the superintendent at St. Stephen's, Montana State alum. Currently working on my doctoral program with JP, my brother.
Great to see you, Frank. Thanks for being here today. In spite of the snow, you're here. I'd also like to introduce our Incredibles. They just got that nickname. I gave it to them, but they're the Incredibles of St. Stephen's. Mr. and Mrs. Mortimer, Matt and Macy Mortimer. Hello today.
Hello, I'm Matt Mortimer. I'm the high school principal. I've been at St. Stephen's for 8 years, kind of worked through the ranks, AD, dean of students, now high school principal, have a master's in leadership, and look forward to this discussion.
And Macy Mortimer, this is my 6th year at St. Stephen's. I used to be a high school math teacher and have just kind of, like Matt, added some job responsibilities each year. My job title is 4 pages long. So next year, instructional administrator. I'm just finishing up my master's in educational leadership. I hold a master's in teaching back when I was a teacher. So also excited for today's discussion.
Great to see you. These 2 young people are so special to what we're doing to Lifting Voices, and I can't wait to hear more from them. And then we have Dr. Gregory Juno. I mean, woo, superhero right here.
Hi, my name is Greg Juno. I'm the elementary principal at St. Stephen's Indian School. I've been there for about 6 years. Just like everyone else, I worked my way up from teacher to dean of students to the principal. I got my bachelor's in education, master's in leadership, and I'm going to start currently working on some other further higher education as well. So nice to meet everyone.
Thank you for being here. We know principals, it's so hard just to get 5 minutes to scarf a sandwich down at lunch. So I know your time is super important, as well as Matt and Macy. And, for the kids who are watching, for the families who are watching, there's a high level of education here. Every one of the people who you're going to hear from today have a high level of higher education. They've dedicated years to learning how to build communities. And so I'm really excited about that. And of course, we have Dr. Tim Rush, who may be the guru of it all. Dr. Rush, welcome.
Let's see here. I'm so impressed. I'm just clicking myself out of the images here. I don't know. I have a PhD from Purdue University, 1980, in education, in reading education, with linguistics background. I came to the University of Wyoming in 1982. I've been working with the tribes and people of the tribes and students who have tribal affiliation since that time. So, what else can I tell you? I'm blessed to be able to do the things that I'm doing, and you compliment me, but I couldn't do what I do without the other people whose images you see on the screen here. So I'm very excited, very flattered, happy and proud to be on this panel today. So, and represent St. Stephen's School, which I first stepped in the door there in 1982. So I have, only recently been employed through a grant at St. Stephen's, but I've been, I know how things looked back then, and I know how things were, and I have to tell you, it's just a marvelous place and an exemplar for what Indigenous education, what culture-based education should be, and it's on the way up. So I'm pleased to be here.
What an honor to have you, sir, with our group today. You've laid the way for our young leaders today, and I want to thank you for that. That is just incredible that you've been embedded in that community and you've dedicated your life to that. So thank you. There's two other ladies that you're seeing on your screen, and they are my heroes and colleagues and family. I want to introduce someone who's so dear to me and was a partner for so many years in Clark County School District, who is just an incredible educational leader. And I mean, probably the smartest woman I know, next to my wife, of course, but Miss Della Frank, welcome.
Hey everyone, thanks. He's so generous all the time. So my name is Della Frank. I am the coordinator for Indian education here in Clark County, the 5th largest district school district in the nation, and the fastest growing Native population. Clark County is. I learned that from the 2020 census, so that makes me really, really happy and get that job security. I was a teacher, Spanish teacher, phys ed teacher at one of the local high schools here in Las Vegas. I coached basketball, volleyball, and then I started tutoring here on the Moapa Band Paiute Reservation. I run this center here. I worked for 8 years with Equity and Diversity Education, teaching the multicultural education to Clark County School District teachers. And I was responsible for all the Native students here on this reservation. And then I moved up and became a coordinator and took the responsibility of all the Native students here. I oversee 650 Native students from over 100 different tribes, the majority of them Navajo, but we have 2 local tribes here, the Las Vegas Paiute and the Moapa Band. And my background, again, is language, and I've got my master's in leadership.
Della's a winner and a fierce competitor, and I don't know if she's ever lost, to be honest. I know I've lost to her when we had picnics and my team would try to play, and I always end up getting hurt. So just don't go against her. That's all I can say there.
Oh, I'm getting older, so.
That's okay. You look great, and we're thankful that you're here. And of course, part of this Voices celebration of culture involves celebrating heroes, and you're all heroes. You are. We want to think about our other heroes. So we saw one of my Fast Growing Heroes, Miss Jayla Swallow, right at the beginning of this, and she dances, and that is medicine, and that is healing power. And Jayla Swallow, she is Lakota Ogala, the daughter of Miss Becky Brown, who's a second grade teacher up in Pine Ridge, an amazing teacher. And Jayla is the reason we're doing this, and her peers and the children. And we know we've always really relied on the federal government or the state or some other entity to lead Native American communities. We're not doing that anymore. That's what Voices is about. We're coming together and we're leading ourselves, and we're bringing the children with us. And I know somebody who knows a lot about children. She's on here, my sister, Micheline Bigman. She is a veteran and an Army veteran. She's seen combat. She's put her life on the line. She's went all around the world to ensure freedom and democracy. And she is a First Nations people. I could just go on and on. The whole show could be about Micheline, honestly. But Micheline, welcome. Thank you for being here this morning, afternoon for you. Let's see if we can get one of our station managers to unmute. There we go.
Okay, sorry. I was like, I can't get off mute. Hello, everyone. My name is
She can
Micheline
drive a
Bigman.
tank and fly
I
a
am,
helicopter.
the president. I've fixed a lot of your tanks. Anything with a motor or engine, I pretty much did. I've been in artillery, supported infantry, and combat engineers. I was a
We're losing just a little bit of your signal, Mitch. I hope that's not my signal. Mitch, your signal's coming in just a little slow. And we'll come back to you in just a minute. Okay, we're just catching a little bit of a delay right there. And we'll get that fixed for you. This is what we deal with. This is what educators deal with. This is what parents deal with. This is what students deal with. We know it's not a big deal. You'll get an opportunity, guys. Yeah.
Need to leave and come back in, sweetheart. We will put you right back in. Don't be afraid to leave the broadcast and come back in if you need to try to
There
connect.
she is. So,
Yeah, I
so
lost
Mitch
you
is
all.
a warrior.
Yeah.
You were telling us about, you have the military background, but tell us about the leadership, what you're doing with NAW, Native American Women Warriors, real quick. Just tell us about that.
Actually, Native American Women Warriors, we were recognized as the first all-female Native American color guard. And then from there, we actually went nonprofit. So what we've been able to do is we're actually getting into the advocacy portion of it, where we've been able to assist some of our veterans in regards to benefits and stuff like that. So that's something we've been also partaking in. And then recently, we were in the inauguration, again, Parade Across America. I had made us some new outfits with dog tags this time, not cones. So that was a challenge. But my educational experience is I was an instructor in the military. I trained over 3,000 soldiers in the NCO Academy in Aberdeen, and then just trained my soldiers in general just to prepare. There was never a day we weren't training and getting ready for anything that came up. So, and All My Children Dance. I got my master's degree through University of Phoenix in business management. And then, I was working on my doctorate, but had to put it aside because I ended up adopting four kids. So they're a little bit handful, but I'm very thankful.
Love those kids. And that's a great reason to put something aside, is for children, that you model what we all should do. And I'm Oh, Micheline, thank you for your service. Thank you. And thank you to all of our veterans who have served. And can you imagine a 5'3" woman that weighs about 120 pounds from, Lodge Grass, Montana, telling soldiers what to do and how to do it and being responsible for that. Wow. So that's why she's here, because we need warriors and we need people who care about children. I know Bonnie's getting ready to come in just a bit. I want to talk about St. Stephen's School and really leveling to the success. I know there's been a 5-year journey. I really like to get Matt and Greg and Macy and Frank and Dr. Rush. If Matt, you just start us off, just talking about some of the changes that have happened during your tenure and having others to discuss that would be fantastic.
Okay, so yeah, in my can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we'll get the studio back. We're working through that. And yeah, just let's keep plugging. And this is Matt Mortimer, the
All right.
principal.
Okay, so over my time here, we've seen a lot of changes. I remember our first was when they first came, and I was kind of new to the administration role, but was very active still. And we didn't hear a lot of positives. It was a lot of, you're missing this, you're missing that, you're not doing this correct, you're not doing that correct. And so it was very clear that we needed to make some changes. We needed to progress in the right direction. And we basically kind of opened the door and took whatever they said to heart and started making those changes, whether it be, creating a good curriculum program, buying curriculum, curriculum review cycles, making sure we have proper motivated staff in the proper positions that are going to basically get the job done, competitive teacher salaries, just making sure that our staff feels supportive and motivated so that they can move in the right direction, collecting data, everything to just try and, we almost basically touched in every area of the school, all the way from, the finances to every student achievement score. And a big thing was hiring a data/curriculum person to kind of really oversee all that aspects of that. And that then allowed the principals to work on other aspects of the school. And, we hired several consultants to help out, and the thing is having a good team. And, no one person was able to accomplish everything on their own. It took a lot of hard work from a lot of people, custodians, teachers, everyone working together, learning kind of what we needed to do. You can see these posters over here. Right here is all the Cognia standards that they have, and just making sure that we're kind of incorporating those. And a big thing is learning more and more about the community and the parents and what their needs are and what they envision for the school, and then incorporating the students. Getting to know your students is a big thing for student achievement. And there was a lot of missing pieces to the overall puzzle that I think we just had to kind of find those pieces and start to put them all together. And we had a huge growth, but at the same time, I think the ceiling is the limit. The sky's the limit. We can keep going, and I think we just have to keep taking advice and keep moving forward. And I can have Macy kind of touch a little bit about the curriculum change and the data implementation and all that stuff.
Yeah, I really want to hear from Macy on, so when you change curriculum and you're talking about, look at all these factors, Macy, how was that for you to build those relationships with the parents, the teachers, the students, on going from where you were at St. Stephen's to where you are now and where you want to go to in the future, that relationship piece of curriculum development?
When I first worked here, I was just, like I said, the math teacher. I actually left for 1 year and taught at a neighboring school. And then Frank brought me back, and my job title was data facilitator. So one of the big charges, I guess, for me was to just get data into the classroom, student achievement data, help teachers understand better instruct students. We just didn't have a lot of formal processes in place for anything. Part of that data, though, Frank and I discussed the need for curriculum programs, and just an understanding of curriculum in general. A lot of teachers had been here for a long time. There was no alignment between grades. There was no unified curriculum programs. There wasn't an overall understanding of standards, and we were just kind of lacking in that area. So we did a curriculum survey, I suppose, and it was just all over the place. Her curriculum that she had just built for the last 40 years. One of the elementary teachers had something completely different. The high school was using a sample teacher program that we picked up at like a conference, and didn't have enough copies for all of the kids. So we just really prioritized curriculum development, starting at that point. And I developed a bunch of committees, and we started with math just because that was my, I guess, my expertise as a math teacher, as a former math teacher. And we built a committee, a K-12 committee, and we looked at, I don't even remember how many programs that were out there, and we finally settled on one. We implemented that in 2017-18, right at the beginning of the school year. And our achievement scores in math specifically, we saw a huge jump that very next year. The first year, we were just getting used to the program and understanding how to utilize it best for our students. But the very year, the scores just jumped up. And I think that it's very much attributed to that program, but also just helping teachers understand the standards and how the curriculum plays such a big part in the student's education. We all know that kids need to learn how to add, subtract, and multiply, but we didn't have a very formalized process or strategy to ensure that we were doing it in an aligned manner, or that students were using the appropriate skills in third grade, for example, to help them be successful. So it's a lot of conversations, a lot of curriculum mapping, a lot of really super fun discussions about standards. But today, I'm very confident that a lot of our teachers understand the curriculum, understand the standards, know how to utilize the programs we have in place. And we're actually starting interventions next year in both reading and math, just to help our students on an even deeper level. So I'm very happy with the turnaround that's happened just in the few short years that I've been the curriculum director, I guess. And I threw a ton of programs at the teachers. We did math 1 year, we did English the next year, we did science the following year, and social studies this year, and kind of sprinkled in electives throughout. So teachers have been hit with 4 new programs, some of them in the last 4 years. And they're not using them 100% with fidelity right now, and they have no reason to, because there's no way you can program quickly. But the changes in the conversations have gone from, well, the kids are behind, but like in math, like now it's very specific. The students in third grade are missing, the standards that relate to these topics, or this critical concept we're not going to be able to address because of COVID. So next year, as fourth graders, you're going to have to intervene in this area, this standards group. Conversations are a lot more specific and a lot more proactive and helpful. It's not just, hey, the kids are having a hard time in math. You know, it's a lot more education and standards based.
Ooh, Stacy, I do not envy the curriculum developer. That is such an important piece of school improvement, school development. I love that you talked about, you went from general conversations to specific conversations about learning standards. And that's epic. It's huge. And it's a piece of school climate culture change that is just has to happen. You know, I know Micheline talked about the 4 kids she's adopted. You know, hearing that as far as the curriculum develop, you know, from the parent perspective, uh, how do you um, appreciate that, or how does that help you build trust into the educational community? And Micheline is down in a whole nother part of the world, but just hearing that, you know, as a parent, do you feel building and developing that curriculum, that professional development? And I'd like Dr. Juneau to jump in with Mitch too, because you have a K through 8 situation. Matt has a 9 through 12. So it's a whole different piece of curriculum, but yet you two have to work together to bridge what should happen as they transition. Mitch, what do you feel about that curriculum, that important aspect?
I think I'm like listening to her. I thought, wow, because I have 2 of my youngest are special needs, so that's a challenge in itself. And the fact that a lot of the schools are starting to really invest the time into education itself. But I mean, as far as a special needs child, sometimes it gets challenging. But the fact that the schools are really stepping up compared to when I was coming up. But yeah, it's great to see that, and especially amongst the native communities, because it seemed like I attended a school on the reservation, and it seemed like we were so far behind. And then when I actually went into off the reservation into a school, there was so much I had to catch up on. But now I see that the advancement and the dedication. I think that's amazing. That is so amazing.
JP, I think you're muted.
Thank you. I could just talk and nobody would tell me. All right. Yeah, see, everybody's getting a laugh now. That's what I love right there. We can do this and we make those mistakes. Also, want to just disclaimer out. We are working in probably 9 different places throughout the world to bring this to you. You may see some in and out issues with internet or broadband. We're going to keep going and keep producing this, and we're scheduled for about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. So just know that we're not going anywhere. You can always log back out, log back in to get a better signal. But bringing that back around to the positive changes for Greg, you know, the hope for the future, and what's been the impact on your community, Mr. Juneau, about the curriculum development, the curriculum changes, how you've had to partner with Matt and then partner with parents like Micheline?
Yeah, so right now one of our visions is just to align all the curriculum that Macy just talked about in the K-8. And that's going to be a big challenge too, is in itself. But you know, we feel very confident in it, and we're you know, moving along. You know, and then, you know, with the parents, we really exercise restorative justice, restorative practices. So we're going to really build those relationships with parents. But what we like though is how we get a lot of parent input along with staff input on whatever decision we make. And that's what I really like too, is it's not just one person making these decisions for our school. We're a team effort. We've worked a long time with each other, and so we know when we can have certain discussions, and we can share the same vision. And like we said, we try and bring in all the stakeholders to make that process happen. And we get a lot of feedback from parents too, who like that we involve the community in whatever we're going to do, whether it's we change our mission or we make changes within the school or something like that. But we always try and involve the community with a lot of our stuff. And over the years, the name of St. Stephen's Indian School really did improve throughout the community. And now when we got in the community, we're hearing good things about all the hard work that we've been doing there at the school. And like I said, it's just not the school board or the administration. It's everybody is an integral piece of the process that we're doing. So I feel really great and really happy to be a part of something like that, because you don't find that in too many schools, across the nation, but since we're global, even across the globe.
Yeah, Greg, you hit the nail on the head. Okay, it's one thing to see it in a regular public school setting, and it's happening, and there's tons of resources. There's a pretty steady annual budget, that doesn't get cut too much. It might get cut 5, 10%, 15 at the most, but you know what you have to work with financially as a school leader each year. I think about Frank and Della from the overview picture as coordinators, as a superintendent, and hearing from a parent like Micheline or from Matt and Stacy and Greg, the managers of the actual brick and mortar structure, the day-to-day, the developers, the programmers. How do you see that, Della? And what's your experience with that, as far as the programming, the professional development? You said you work for Equity and Diversity, and I know that was a huge piece of developing teachers down in Clark County. And by the way, Clark County probably has 30,000 plus licensed contracted teachers. So, I mean, you're one person with a team that's working to ensure everybody understands the value of those 650 Native American students in that huge district. What would you add to that conversation from Matt and Greg?
Thank you, JP. I really enjoyed what Macy had to say as far as the curriculum, and I don't think Clark County is even at that point yet. I am trying my best to get us into where we are more focused on what the students are learning in the classroom with the teachers. The changes that Clark County has gone through is the communication process. I mean, when I came on board, Indian Ed was a program that was on the shelf, basically. They got around to 1 or 2 events a year, and we reached maybe at the most 20 to 30 kids. And so what I was hearing from parents, and then I'd go to work and hear from teachers or, from the Equity and Diversity Department, were just 2 different things. And we have improved the communication. Now the parents are being heard. They're actually going to the superintendent and the trustees at least twice a year and communicating their concerns. We have the ESSA, the Every Student Succeeds Act, that really keeps the Clark County School District accountable to the tribes. So we meet with the tribes, and they have input into the Johnson O'Malley and Title VI grants and programming that take place. Our Clark County Indian Education Parent Committee has anywhere from 12 to 15 members that we work very, very closely. And I know my attitude has changed through the years. I've always been pro-family, pro-parents, but just recently I took a course on parent engagement, and just really helped me to understand that partnership between the parents, the community, especially the Native community, because of the amount of tribes that are out there. Like I said earlier, we service over 100 tribes. So I'm not the expert, right? Every tribe wants their history taught. And so I'm working on making or developing leaders in our parents and helping them to step up and take that responsibility, and working with our we have a parent that knows the Navajo language. And because I'm a language teacher, I can come alongside of him and bring him into the classroom. And even though he's not a licensed teacher, I can work close with them to teach the native language. And so there's a lot of there was another point on the data. The data is very important. We couldn't even get an accurate count of our students. This year, we're meeting with a principal over at Walker, one of the Walker schools, a local teacher. I don't know if you remember Mercedes Krause. And we're meeting with the assessment people here and just getting our numbers correct, and having our Infinite Campus program where parents register to have accurate count, to have that Title VI and Johnson O'Malley, the difference between those two students, as well as our students that are just Native, not just, but are Native American, but don't qualify for those programs. We're not forgetting those kids, because we have a lot of kids that want to be part of Indian Ed that may not necessarily qualify because of those eligibility requirements. But the data has been very, very important, and we're working on really having accurate counts. And one of the complaints that a parent or the teacher Mercedes had was that she went to a training, and the demographics here, we're less than 1% of the school population because it's such a big district. The Native American population, less than 1%. So when you go and get the data on these subgroups, she said that she saw one training that said that the Native American population was so small, they classified them as a nuance. Well, or a subgroup that didn't even count. So they don't even have the data for our students. So that's been my focus this year, is to get our students counted correctly, the data to reflect where they are as far as their English assessment and the math assessment, so we can move forward like you guys are doing at Stevens.
Data is crucial, and I think we have a tendency as educators to throw so much data, and then it takes time to analyze that data and move back to that piece where, okay, now we understand what the trends are that we see in those data points, and now what are the actions we actually need to take to get forward and to move forward. Dr. Rush, what's been your experience over the many years with data and community decisions, and when we hear from Matt and Greg and Dylan and Frank, and they're talking about data, why is that important to the leaders? Why is that important to those educational leaders who are developing our teachers and students? We're just going to unmute.
I'll start over. I think that the analysis of data has to be there, but it has to be consistently examined. The problem that I have seen with American Indian education in the public schools and with language immersion, with language revitalization, is that the people doing the analysis of the data turn over way too fast in their roles. So that, it was typical in the 1980s for principals on the reservation to last about 3 years. Superintendents less than that. So there was not consistent analysis of data on achievement. on program effectiveness. The consensus back in the 1980s was that culture-based education has no impact at all on overall achievement, on school success. So programs that were really making a difference were not assessed because the person deciding what data to examine was not the same person from year to year. So programs that were really good were dropped because of the whims of the new superintendent or the new administration. So I don't know if that's the kind of answer you wanted to that question, JP, but that's my 2 cents worth.
Dr. Rush, we always want the truth. It's the only way we move our children forward, and they deserve the truth. And sometimes the truth about our educational practices is that we're not doing it good enough, you know, and that's why you have to look at that piece of the data.
Well, JP, if you look at St. Stephen's School, you see that what I just said is completely contradicted by the way things are, the way things have been over the last 5 or 6 years at St. Stephen's. People who are in charge and the teachers themselves come and they stay, right? I think if you look at the student body, you would find the same thing, that the kids used to turn over all the time, skip from district to district, and I don't think that's the case now at St. Stephen's, because people see the value. They see that families are important here, and our opinions are important. We feel like we are part of the school. I was going to talk later about family funds of knowledge.
We're going to come to that. Super exciting. Okay. Frank, I know you're there, and I looked at your team, and you have Greg. Greg, you said you've been there about 6+ years. Matt, you've been there 8 years. Macy, you've been embedded in that community. Frank, I know you've been the superintendent now going on about 5 into your 6th year. How have you held that together? And then coming back to Micheline, what do you see in that value as a parent of a team that stays together? So Frank, thanks for coming back. We'd love to see you.
Thank you, JP. I guess it all started with just trying to develop a shared vision with the school board, the administration, and the teachers, basically all the stakeholders. And then also, trying to build some mental models. I had a mental model of a data vision. That's a framework passed on to me from Joe Swain, who's a former superintendent in Billings Schools. And I'm also creating an administrative leadership team where we can learn together from our mistakes, celebrate our growth, and readjust when we make those mistakes. Another one I thought about is just building capacity and personal mastery of our own leadership. And I like to think that we're all leaders. We're not only administrative leaders, but we also have a lot of teacher leaders, paraprofessional leaders. We have a lot of parent leaders. So I think we all have that leadership in us, and we just bring that out. And then the 5th thing that I tried to do there was really change the system thinking. So I try to take it as a student. A student can rid themselves of their learning disabilities, and so the organization can do that also. The learning organization, they could rid themselves of those disabilities that doesn't make them productive, and it doesn't help them develop success. If you get rid of that and you start adopting new strategies, which ones that you have more expansive thinking from everybody, and you take that thinking and you nurture it. And then also you build some collective aspirations from everybody, so everybody has a good voice and a choice in what we're doing. And with the parents, you guys brought up the parents. We started a parent group 5 years ago, and the parent meetings before that, there was just meetings, and that was it. But we designed a structure where the parents could see their actual work being implemented in our school. And right now we have a parent group that is really super motivated, and they're doing a lot for us. So that's that. And going back to this virtual immersion school, which I'm really happy to be a part of, and happy to see it come to fruition, is that we're all learning. And the COVID, one positive thing we did take out of it, the core project team of the language immersion grant, they came up with a new idea. And the immersion school at first was just going to have 16 kindergartners in there learning the Arapaho language. But COVID taught us that we could all learn at home. And so now they're designing the program to be all virtual, where they could reach every household. So there's a lot of different faucets that you have to go through. And we like to give our teachers a lot of input. And we give out a lot of surveys and stuff, but it's just hearing everybody's voice. And we're all educators at the higher levels, and we still got to learn. So my next little tiny project for us 4 administrators here is to really focus on K2 instruction, because I never did have experience in a kindergarten classroom, so I couldn't go in and tell Miss Stewart, who is our kindergarten teacher, saying, "Hey, you have to do it this way. You got to do it that way," because I remember substituting in kindergarten, and we went to recess like 10 times that day, and I never went back. So you could always learn. I mean, there's always a lot more to learn, and stability is really important. And I like having the same administrators. That revolving door has to stop. One thing, Cognia asked me to speak at their Montana Cognia conference coming up sometime soon. But one thing I see about reservation schools is they have the same administrators, but they're always transferring them. And like, say if you have a middle school principal just got his foot in the door for one year, and then the board and the higher main administration, they start transferring people, so they never get a chance to build that plan and implement it and learn from the mistakes on the implementation of it.
Patty Bement commented in the chat, when every stakeholder has a voice and a choice, they feel like they matter within the system that is being built. And so all of you have mentioned about that stakeholder, that Della, you talked about a parent advisory committee. You have, Dr. Rush, you mentioned the cultural significance of curriculum. I want to move our conversation forward just for a little bit, and then we're going to come back to actually getting to talk about that exciting language immersion program that you're going to begin. I know Greg's super excited. Greg probably doesn't let those kids go to recess 10 times, just so you know. I know, just having a little fun with Frank. And I'll be honest, the only thing I remember 4 times, only thing I remember about kindergarten was the chocolate milk and the naps. So that was probably years and years ago. Micheline, hearing from all of these leaders, and there's several different levels here. We have and you have 4 kids, so I know you have K through 12 kids. Greg, he has K through 12 or 8, and then you have Della, who's over a whole entire district coordination program. Frank, who's the superintendent, who has the ability to say, no, this is what we're actually going to do. And even if you don't agree with it, we're going to do it because I know it's the best thing. And then you have Matt and Macy at the high school level. From the parent, Micheline, where do you feel that interaction piece in the school system developing your children, is it the curriculum, or is it just even the voice that you can share as a parent? Because that's what I'm hearing from everybody, that voice is so important.
It is. I can actually say here in Florida, I think the schools have made it a point to where they reach out not only to the the children, but the families as well. They really get everybody involved. I think I get like maybe 5 or 6 emails a day regarding, you know, some of the things that are coming up in the special programs for our children. And to hear what expansion has happened in just St. Stephen's alone, and I think on the reservation schools, I think it's amazing, because when I attended the school, we didn't have a lot of this stuff. There wasn't no stability, and that's very, very important. Even in the military, you had to have that stability, and with children, that's even more so now, especially in today's society, and as well as you know, bringing back the culture. I'm kind of envious, because I wish, you know, during that time when I was attending, I even attended a boarding school. So there was a lot that was taken from us, and we were so restricted. But what I see now in regards to how our Native American education is evolving, I think it's great. And the fact that families are actually involved in so many different aspects, from language to cultural to teaching to dancing. You know, I was in being in the military, my kids never really got a chance to be around a lot of that, because we were such a diverse community. But I always made sure that we shared a part of us in regards to Native American, our Native American culture. And we always did a dance. We've done speaking. We've done, you know, what little part that we could partake in. But it was just, I think it's amazing of what I see, and I'm envious, to tell you the truth.
You know, you don't have to be envious, because this whole Voices project is to share what successful school systems are doing. As obviously St. Stephen's is having a great amount of success. If you heard Dr. Rush earlier talking about where it was, where it has been, where it is now, I applaud Greg, Matt, Macy, Frank. I applaud you all. Your efforts are valid. They are needed. They are working. Thank you. What a blessing you are to this Native American community. And then you're actually, you may not know it, you probably do, you're building a model. We can take your model, we can go to Clark County, we can go to LA Unified, we can go to Chicago One, we can go to New York, we can go to North Carolina Cherokee, we can go down to Seminoles. We can run the whole gamut here and really have a model. And I would predict, if we were to blast your email, you guys be getting a lot of emails from some people who are watching. I think we probably have just about 400 viewers right now or so. But I think that the future is the model that you're building. And Mitch, you talked about it, so I want to move it to that piece. Cultural celebration. You know, there is that data piece that Macy talked about, right? Macy, you talked about that. But now, Dr. Rush, you told us there has to be a cultural relevance in this whole piece of it. You know, Micheline, you make dresses. How is that important? You know, Della, you celebrate community involvement. How is that important? I want you guys to just really bring that in and conversate on that, because that's wisdom beyond what the Eurocentric valued Western dominant educational centered piece is. And I feel like what you're doing, what you all are doing as a group of educators in your own communities, you're actually changing what education for Native American students looks like versus where it's been stuck for 120, 150 years. The winds of change are happening, and you guys are making this happen. What does that mean to you, Mitch, to be able to, you know, sew a dress, have your children wear it? What's the value you see in that as leaders for Greg, you know, Della, Matt?
Making making an outfit, I guess it's you're making it with heart and you're making it with emotion. And then when your children don that outfit and take that heart and that emotion out into the circle, it's just that much more. And I can only speak for self, but like I said, I had to teach myself how to sew. I can fix an M1, but I didn't know how to sew. So it was a challenge in itself. But actually taking the time to learn, and especially the jingle dress because of what it stands for, and learning how to make the Alptude dress and doing the bead work, and because it's about who you are and about family and how much heart it takes and how much work it takes. And then when your children are out there actually dancing with it, with their heart. I mean, all my kids dance, even the ones that I've adopted, they dance, and they love it because they go out there and they have that sense of pride and sense of heartfelt and very proud of being Native American. So that's, it means a lot to me that, sometimes even no one can really see all my mistakes, but my kids are just out there. They're just enjoying themselves.
Yeah, Macy, what do you think about that? And I know you're a math teacher at heart, so you're analytical, you're data driven. Where does that play into your thought process in the development and overall data with cultural relevance?
So when I very first started, like I said, Frank, or like he said, he gave us, the administration, this picture of how to implement data into our school. And it's like a cyclical model about receiving the data, analyzing the data, making change, and then re-evaluating what we've done to move forward with our instruction, which makes complete sense. So kind of like you just talked about, my data-driven math mind, we did our math assessments the first year, and I just put every kid on a spreadsheet with their score, and I gave it to the teachers. And they were like, okay, just a lot of numbers, a lot of things to take in. We were taking, reading, math, science, language. It was just a lot of information. So to make it a little bit easier, I just color coded it for the teachers to demonstrate where students were performing based on normative averages. A lot of our kids were red, below basic. The rest of them were yellow, which was basic, and very few were green or blue, which was proficient or advanced. And so the teachers got very disheartened, and we would show the kids these graphs and these charts, and all of the ways that I was representing the data were very truthful, but it was very disheartening. And we knew that our Native kids were performing at lower levels than the normative averages across the country. But that data, the way I was presenting it, wasn't telling the teachers anything. It wasn't supporting their instruction. It was kind of just making everyone upset. So to change that, I called it the bubble sheet. And I highlighted kids that were on the bubble of moving from below basic to basic, from basic to proficient, and from proficient to advanced. So instead of just 4 colors, the blue, green, yellow, and red, I think it was like 20 colors. It was just this rainbow of student achievement, but it demonstrated that even though our students weren't performing at the national average or at the level they were supposed to be, they were on the bubble. They were just within a couple points. They were making such growth over the course of the year that they would turn from red to orange to dark yellow to light green. They would go through this progression of the rainbow throughout the school year, and just changing that kind of thinking in our teachers, it kind of brought a lot of hope to everyone and demonstrated that no, our kids were not performing where they were supposed to be on a national normative average, but we knew that. We knew that our kids in our school were behind. We knew that we had a long way to go to improve their scores, but just changing the framework to they're below basic to no, they're on the bubble of being proficient, actually just changed a lot of the teachers' kind of mindset and the students as well, because they were able to see the progression over the course of the year and how close they were to that next level.
Wow. I don't even know if I comprehend what you just taught us, and I'm going to have to watch the video about 4 times. It's super deep. It's heartfelt. It shows who you are as a person and how much you care about people, especially your kiddos. Greg, Mr. Juno, thinking about that, how are you? How does cultural celebration, how does celebrating those positive contributions? Because when we talk about the littles, I call them the littles, the pre-adolescent before the teenage years, how important has that been for your part of St. Stephen's system and the K through 8 to celebrate those contributions at large? And what does that look like for you? What are you doing?
Well, the first thing we did is when we first showed up, I remember some of the elders met with Frank, and I remember this piece that he told us was, one of the elders mentioned put the Indian back into St. Stephen's Indian School. So we took that and we moved with it. And so we started building a framework and a curriculum for language and culture. And we put a lot of focus and energy into it then. So this is how we have language and culture within our school, within our classes. The students get to speak their language, that's why we're getting the language immersion school going, so they could speak it a lot more within the school day and within the subjects. But for right now, with them getting just the basics, I think they're right where they need to be. And so that's how it looks in our school. But, just to give them kids a sense of cultural pride and a cultural self-identity, their cultural identity. Who are you? Where do you come from? Who do you represent? These are the questions that I ask Native American students, because if you have that sense of culture, you know who you are, you have a high self-efficacy. And once you have that high self-efficacy, you can really use that as motivation to be successful in whatever you need to be successful in, whether it be, engineering or whatever. But going back to our language piece, when we went to other language immersion schools, what I learned is when the language was given to the parents, it wasn't going into the households. So what the language immersion schools start doing is giving it to the kids, and they encourage the kids to bring it back into the households, and they told them to speak it to their parents. So instead of coming down this way with the language, bringing back into the household, they brought it up through this way. And so when the kids go home and they start speaking, I'm Blackfeet, by the way, I'm sorry, but when our language immersion kids would go back home and start speaking Blackfeet to the parents got this fire underneath them, and they were really happy to speak their language, but it was coming from the kids. They didn't have to teach them, the kids were teaching them. And so what happened, and the way they assessed that was with parent language groups. Whereas before, maybe 2-3 parents would show up at those meetings, but once those kids start bringing that language back into the households, those numbers rose. The next thing, the parents are coming in with that motivation to learn their language. And now we have, a lot of households back up there in Blackfeet country that have the language in their house. And so we try and take that model, and we're going to try and use it here because, there is a lot of low speakers. It's like that nationwide. But if we have that framework, that curriculum, that motivation, that teamwork, that personnel, we can do a lot of work. And that's why I'm glad I'm really working with Dr. Rush right now, because I'm really learning a lot on how to do this and how to make it happen. It's easy to stand back and see it and kind of be a part of it, but to actually be in the, in the system and making it work, I really learn a lot, and you really get to see a lot of difference and a lot of change and a lot of growth within the students themselves, but also the community and the parents. So this is how we really see it down here at St. Stephen's.
I really think what you're speaking about, and this is going to catch on. Trust me. And you guys are probably about 5 years ahead of the curve, to be honest. But when it catches on, it's going to be a huge movement across the United States, and it's a model also for other cultures who are concerned about revitalizing their languages. I know Della Frank is taking notes. I know she is. She is a constant learner, and Dr. Rush, you're the one who ties us in for this group because you saw how it was years ago, and listening to these leaders and to Micheline today, and you get to work with them, and you said 1980, so I'm not a math person like Macy. You've been in the game for a minute, I'll say a minute. There's probably a number of years. I can't think that fast. But as you look at, your career, and I know you're going to be with us many, many years. We're going to be blessed to have you many, many years ahead. How do you feel about what's happening at St. Stephen's, the model that these leaders are building? And then, for someone like Della, who's midpoint, how does she take your knowledge and now turn that piece of the career? Because we're here to support educators too, and educators need to understand we have leaders here today, but we also have teachers. Macy said, I started as a teacher. Frank said, I started in kindergarten. Dr. Rush, would you bring that to that language immersion piece for us and just keeping that voice alive? I know Gerardo's backstage, and he may have some of your PowerPoint, but I really want to hear from Dr. Rush for the next few minutes, because your knowledge, your wisdom, this is what we need so we can take all this new school action. I call it new school action. By the way, Matt, I'm going to need one of those shirts because that is just super fly right there. But Dr. Rush, we bring that to the actual piece. I mean, this is your research, this is your lifetime of work, and now you're seeing it come to fruition.
Well, I'm very flattered that you say such kind things about me, but I'm into language. I'll get to the PowerPoint in a minute. I'm into language revitalization for a couple of reasons, but the fundamental one is the idea that I learned from a linguist 2 decades ago. He said, right now there are 6,000 languages active in the world, and 3,500 of them are endangered, right? What if, a world problem comes along that we can't solve because the language that explains the problem and the solution to the problem has gone extinct? Well,
whoa, that's deep.
Yeah, it's not my idea. You can probably find things about it on the internet. There was a movie with Sean Connery years ago, I think, called Medicine Man, about a fellow who was researching. He was a doctor researching in the jungles of South America, and the tribe that was going extinct had the answer to cancer. And well, you can imagine what the plot is in the movie. Anyway, we are a community of learners and educators, and we share things, right? One of the things that I'd like to see more of is what we're engaged in now at St. Stephen's, is getting the word out on what we're doing. We're here because of that. We'll be at 2 conferences later this month, virtual conferences. We have found in this project that online homeschool approaches to language development, language revitalization, have very, very positive effects that we really weren't. We were we had a bricks and mortar concept, right? Very good, with 3 teachers in every classroom, with maybe 15 or 16 kids. The 3 teachers were an elder who was fluent in language and culture, and a master teacher who was fluent in teaching in general and very interested in acquiring Arapaho language, and a novice teacher, right, or 2, like a student teacher, also committed to acquiring mastery or at least competence with Arapaho. And I think today I'm thinking, because of our conversation, that that 3rd person could be a parent. 3rd and 4th persons could be parents. What we found is that students, we think we found this, we're researching it more carefully, but the achievement of Arapaho language goals in an online class is faster. The goals are achieved faster. Like the goals for a semester, fall semester, were achieved by Thanksgiving, when the target date for completion of those goals was Christmas. That's a significant improvement, right? We also found casually that parents and others in the family unit were participating in the lessons. That Billy or Rosie are doing their lessons with Mr. Ridgely and Miss Goggles or Mr. Redman, and there are people in the background who are what's the word, kibitzing, right? They're joining into the lesson, right? Wow, that was a revelation. And so we began to we're in the process of working out a curriculum where maybe family participation will be more systematic. I mentioned this in submitting a proposal to John Rayner at the Northern Arizona University for his American Indian Indigenous Teacher Education Conference later in June. And immediately I got a response back that their Hopi high school teacher had mentioned that parents and families were participating in the lessons, in the online lessons, almost as though they were part of the class. They would sit down and talk, right, and listen. I'm hopeful. I'm more hopeful now, and I have to say, I'm in a way, well, in a big way, I'm glad that we had. I can't say that. A positive consequence of the COVID pandemic has been what I just said, right? That we found a way to engage families. We found a way to engage students more fully in their lessons so that they achieve competence faster. So these things will be worked into the systematic immersion program at St. Stephen's. Even if
I love what you said. Something positive from a negative.
Yeah.
That for all of us, we all need to hear that. I know you had a PowerPoint, and I want to see if you just give us a couple of the key points on that PowerPoint, Dr. Rush, and
be happy to. You probably are getting the picture that if you give me the microphone, I'll run away with it. Anyway, I think that there will be a working group at the AHEC conference, and probably at our own conference in early June, the Burnett Whiteplume Memorial Symposium.
One of the other things too, I think we've all learned is now that people are getting used to video learning, video virtual education concepts, we can actually move faster and quicker in what we want people to attain and to learn, and it becomes relevance because it's a brand new experience. It's not hey, you're going to do 35 math problems. You did them the week before. You're doing it again. This is really, really a new stretch for many, many people, and especially children. Now, children, they're going to benefit. This generation is going to benefit because they'll have this mastered. You know, it's new to us as adults, but this is the norm for them. This has not been the norm for us, but it is for people under 25. This is the norm now. You know, the undergraduate college level and then the K through 12. Video teleconferencing and learning online is the norm for children and learners today. Gerardo, if you're back there, you can go ahead and pull that PowerPoint up for us. I want to have Dr. Rush just really get into this. And of course, I want to hear, I know after Dr. Rush, Frank is really going to sum up that whole language program, what's going to be happening coming over the summer and in August. And then I have some shout outs for St. Stephen's coming up.
Okay. Well, can I control this? I guess I can't. You're going to control the slides, is that right?
Yeah, if you just tell them when to go forward.
Okay, well, this is boilerplate. We'll skip to the next slide. I wanted to say before I get into this that I've taught online classes for the University of Wyoming since 2001, right? So 20 years. And I have found that I'm a better teacher when I'm online than I am when I'm in the classroom. I have a colleague who began teaching around that time. We both agree. You know, there are such advantages to teaching online that it ought to be part of public education. What we have now is teachers realizing, I hope they realize, how powerful it is, and that we begin to see more online engagement. There are kids in every classroom, and I think particularly in schools serving American Indians, who will not participate in a large group lesson. They're not comfortable with that, and that's I think that's human nature. So if we can give them things that they can do, interact with us in this form, where they're not embarrassed to have 30 people sitting, shoulder to shoulder with them, that's a good thing. All right, I'm going to talk about the history of the immersion program at St. Stephen's. It began with the idea that Burnett Whitebloom's idea, that we don't have to ask permission to save our language. I think he borrowed that from the late Darrell Kipp at Cutswood School in Browning, Montana, a place that our team has visited as we developed the St. Stephen's program. So Burnett and a few of people around the reservation and at the university said, all right, we're going to establish a permanently funded immersion program on the reservation, on the Wind River Reservation for Arapaho kids. Well, we put together proposals and we've taken it around, but we decided that we can go through this stepwise. We can demonstrate to the world that we're dead serious as Arapaho people about preserving our language. And the way we'll do that is to apply for smaller grants that will get us going. The St. Stephen's Immersion School derives from that. Right? We submitted a proposal for bricks and mortar. We showed flexibility as a people for adjusting to an ugly situation last year with COVID, and we made positive gains, and those gains will continue. So next slide, I'll just, there are 23 slides here. I'm not going to go through them all, but you folks can have access to this PowerPoint presentation, and you're welcome to ask questions of me at any time. These are the people right now who are our core project team, who are responsible for the goals and setting direction and getting things moving. Next slide. Okay, flip to the, there we go. Okay, so this is an overview I've talked about. Hinanda Etit is the Arapaho word for our Arapaho language. That's what we call this overall project that we hope to have, one of America's 1,000 plus billionaires just, support for the rest of time. And so, we want it to be permanent and comprehensive. Dual language immersion means you use both languages. Well, you use English to help you master Arapaho. There are people who would give you different variations on that, but essentially that's how it works. Next slide. Okay. Well, you know that probably St. Stephen's follows this model. Initially, it was established to remove the Arapaho language from the Arapaho people, and kids were punished for speaking it. Burnett Whiteplume's dad, Jake, went to school, and he laughed as an old man that standing in line for one of his meals with a couple of his friends in 5th grade, they were speaking Arapaho, and a matron heard them and dragged Jake off and locked him in the coal shed. And, later after supper, the kids used napkins to cart a meal from the dining hall to the barracks where they stayed, and on the way they slipped those napkins full of food under the door, and they laughed that the matrons never caught on, and they thought they had punished Jake, but it wasn't as bad as they thought. Well, I've referred here, I think, in a couple of places to an article or a chapter that appears in a book called Standing Together, edited by Beverly Klug. In that article is, or in that book, in that chapter, is a description of what to do to maintain healthy programs for American Indian kids in environments where where people don't believe that culture-based education is worth spending money on. Okay. The article is by Angela Jaime, my former colleague, who is now at one of the Canada universities, and myself. So you might have a look at that. Also, there's a new book that's published by John Rayner's Center at Northern Arizona University, the language revitalization program there. It's a monograph of articles of presentations that were done at the Stabilizing Indigenous Languages Conference last year, or in 2019 at Lethbridge University in Canada. It's marvelous. I mean, I've looked at a couple of the articles, and everybody that should read that. Every teacher, and certainly everybody who's listening to this, to me meander. Let's go to the next slide. So, okay. All right, the Northern Arapaho people have a tribal education code that says that their language will be the centerpiece of public education. We're at St. Stephen's, we're trying to make that a reality. I think some of the other schools are too, but it's a fact that public schools, and most schools on the reservation are public, they're state and federal funded. Public schools respond to the requirements of the people who pay them. And if the federal and state governments don't value culture-based education, then you won't see it last very long in the schools. We're doing something about that. Next slide, please. Okay, we started out saying, you know, we think we can be a model for the rest of the world on how to preserve our languages, those 3,500 languages that are endangered, or in the cases of some we know very well, they're critically endangered. So, we have conference presentations on our list of accomplishments. We have more. We will have a chapter in the monograph that comes from the American Indian Indigenous Teacher Education Conference this year, already underway. Spread the word, right? It's not enough to do things well in isolation when what you are doing could help millions of kids, not just the hundreds at your district. So I always have that in the back of my mind. I don't say it very much, but it's there. Next slide. Okay, we have teacher certification in Arapaho and in, you know, state certified teaching as part of our model. We're preparing a master teacher to be certified in Arapaho, and a novice teacher to be certified 2 ways, by the tribe as someone competent to teach using the Arapaho language, and from the state certification point of view, these people will be achieve certification through the St. Stephen's School Dual Immersion Program. Next slide.
Dr. Rush,
Yes, sir.
I want to summarize where you started and you brought us back to. You partnered up with the university system. You partnered up with funding.
Mm-hmm.
Your team worked to come up with a core concept and idea. Greg talked about not from the top down, but from the bottom up, bringing this from the children to the households. We know that there's a huge amount of cultural relevancy.
Mm-hmm.
That when the student becomes self-aware, they find out just because they're born into it doesn't mean they're stuck in it. The student gain the courage to go get valuable, real integrated wisdom. Warren, that's a mind-opening statement there. Having the courage to just go get a valuable integrated system. When Warren makes a statement like that, integrated system is what you're doing, and it shows. And I want to let people know that PowerPoint is available. Dr. Rush has made that available to the public, and Gerardo will show that tiny URL. Frank, summing up everything that we've talked about today, and Dr. Rush, thank you. Your wisdom. I want to probably get a video and just record you for about 15 hours and just get that wisdom locked away. And what a blessing, for motivated leaders like Macy and Matt, like Greg, and for our parent and hero. And remember, Micheline, she went overseas. She had 3 tours in combat, so that kids in St. Stephen's had the freedom to learn their language. I mean, you guys got to understand how, if you're watching, you got to know how valuable that service from Micheline is. Frank, as you came in as superintendent, and you and I don't even know what is 2021, probably met about 5 years ago. We're sitting in some stats class making jokes or making noises. It's a little dark on your face though, Frank. I don't know if, because you got the light behind you there. We just see this silhouette with the light. But What does this? Yeah. Oh, yeah. Perfect. What does this mean to you? I mean, you've been on this whole journey as a person and a leader. I look at your team. I'm a little jealous. I want me a Greg Juno. I want a Macy Mortimer. I want a Matt Mortimer. And because Della is working to implement a program like this, what does this mean to you to see your team having success, birthing a new way of teaching, a cultural connectivity to language, which ties into everything your kids are going to do. Just knowing their own language. And remember, Micheline told us she went to a boarding school. So we're not that far from boarding schools. We're really not that far away from boarding schools. What does it mean to you? And what's on the future horizons? And then we'll close this out.
When we got our Cognia report back, actually cried during the chat, the close and exit, because that's what I've been working for my whole life, to try to make a native school successful. Back in Montana, they had a school improvement initiative that focused on the top 5 worst schools on the reservations in Montana. I think I was in Lame Deer at the time, and I was the assistant principal, and the initiative called for the removal of the principal, and so I became the principal that way there at Lame Deer. And the model they used really destroyed that community. They thought it was really good for them to come in. Their model was really not research based, from Montana Office of Public Instruction, and it really gave me a view on to go back and really use those frameworks that we learned in our doctoral and master's program. You don't learn nothing too much about frameworks in your bachelor's program, and they introduce those frameworks in your master's program, and then in your doctoral program you actually learn the structures and frameworks of that theory. So that's what the whole thing is based on. Transformational leadership theory is how we started at St. Stephen's, and we built the learning continuum that we try to move our school from a toxic culture to a transformational leadership culture. We try to take the superintendent and not just be the boss of everybody and micromanage everybody, but help them build and become leaders, and help them lead side by side instead of leading in front of them. And so we try to do away with that authoritarian leadership, and where we're a team of leaders leading that school. So just to see that model actually work, which we were trying to push at Lame Deer, just to see it work makes me really happy. And I think that we're going to be a model for other schools, for the BIE, and not only for the BIE, but for other reservation public schools, because we actually created together a blueprint on how to turn around a native school. And it's not an expert blueprint right now because we're still learning as we're flying the plane, but that's what we actually have a blueprint for it. And now it's for us to go back into that blueprint and redesign it and refine it to move our school, like me and Macy and Matt been talking, and Greg, from a good school to a great school. So that's our next goal with our Cognia, and having the first language immersion school at St. Stephen's. That's going to be another huge accomplishment for our leadership team, and especially if we have a lot of success with this immersion school, that can also be a model for other schools to do it virtually, because I think our model is the first model I heard of an immersion school being like that, designing a curriculum for the whole household, and we could reach all of our students K through 12, and even the little students that are not our students yet, that are in that household, that are under preschool age, they could even start then. My buddy, Dr. Jason Cummins, he gave me a good quote, and I asked him, what's your guys' goal of the immersion school? And he said the goal of any immersion program should be to produce well-balanced students who are biliterate, bicognitive, and bicultural within 5 years. He said that's the model they use, and he says, Frank, the school may sound ambitious right now. He said, but if you guys really focus on this school and really work together, you can achieve that by having that well-designed program. And I think that Dr. Rush's leadership is doing that with the CPT team and all of our ALT teams getting involved in the immersion program. So we're starting to really work together. And one of the suggestions I did have for the CPT team at one meeting was, instead of just having 3 teachers, why everybody involved in this, why don't you guys all teach? Because you guys all know the language. And there's several individuals on that team that are fluent speakers, and there's individuals who are not on the CPT team but are still involved. They are also fluent speakers. So we're hoping to get a lot of fluent speakers. Teaching lessons. So right now, our cultural teachers are actually teaching lessons virtually, and that's going to be invaluable resources for our future students, because when our elders move on, we'll still have all those recordings. And that's one good way that another goal for us will be how do we archive all those virtual teachings, and how do we save that information for future students. So that's going to be another big project that we haven't discussed yet. But I really like the idea of retaining all that cultural language knowledge on virtual recordings. And I think that that's going to be a great resource to us, and also to our teachers who are watching the program right now, our regular classroom teachers. We just interviewed a gentleman today from North Dakota, I believe. He's working with the Mandan Hidatsa tribes and worked around Indian kids for so long. But, so he'll be coming in. If we decide to hire him, he'll be coming in. But like, those resources could also help them. And they are working on that curriculum. That's our next big step. We are going to have a language symposium virtually through Shock Logic that you referenced to us, JP. And they're all from South America. So that's pretty cool to meet other people around the world. And so we're working with them right now. And it's going to be a virtual live event like this. And we plan to have another big one of these in November or late December, and really promote it and host it and invite the elders to the casino to where they have those big rooms, presentation rooms, where we could put it on the big screen and we could showcase that to them. Because there was one word that Browning heard in that Greg heard in Browning's immersion school. Daryl Kitts, my uncle, he's my brother to my Joseph Lamont. They're really close. He died when he was 25. But Daryl Kitt gave me his Indian name, my grandpa's Indian name, and that's why I know Daryl Kitt so well. But he passed on, and but his son's doing a good job up there also. But just he said there's a lot of cultural vampires, that try to impede the process or divert the process. So we're gonna take. We learned something from Dr. Tom Cavanaugh that trained us in restorative justice and practices. He gave us the theory of divergent thinking. So we're not going to focus on that negative thinking about our immersion school. You guys are doing it wrong. You guys are not from here. We're going to focus on what we're going to do right and how we're going to do it. So that's our next goal for our immersion program. And it's really new to our teachers and our administrators and how we're going to implement it into our brick and mortar school. But the only way we could figure that out is by having dialogue, discussions, and ideas, and letting people, like I said, get in those collective aspirations where everyone could have a voice and a choice.
Frank, wow. You said something. You said, we're going to we're going to think about what we need to do that's right, and then how we're going to do it. And I think every school, no matter if you're a Native American school, if you're a BIE school, if you're a predominantly Latino school on the east side of Las Vegas, or if you're a private charter or private faith school in Yonkers, New York, what are we going to do that's right, and how are we going to do it? And whew, man, that is
Yeah,
huge. That's a
we
big
stole that
big
quote.
nugget.
The quote that he told us was, "Don't focus on why teachers are leaving. Focus on why teachers are staying."
There you go. That's knowledge. I want to be respectful of time, and I'm telling you, I could talk about this all day long. I know you guys would rather, especially Macy, would rather be talking about this than charting data. Of course, no, she loves it, and she's great at it. You can tell she has a passion for it. I want to just say on behalf of Global GEG, Montana GEG, and all of our Google leaders, I want to say thank you to St. Stephen's Indian School, to Gregory Juno, Dr. Rush, Matt and Macy Mortimer, Frank No Runner, all of your teachers, your parents, your kiddos, your alumni, the people you're getting off to college. Way to go. Congratulations. This is what you're doing is how you make the world a better place. And it's phenomenal. And I'm to celebrate this with you just through the talking. But I know there's some things like we didn't get to discuss yet, expectations or the responsibilities, the goals and objectives. So obviously we're going to have to do this again for St. Stephen's. And I'm looking at my mentor Della, and I know you're just chewing all this up, and you're like, wow, look at that. She's got a notepad right there, and this is a lady who has all kinds of degrees and experience, and she's still learning. I want to say thank you to Della. You were the first Voices Project for Clark County. And I hope you'll continue to be a part of this as we get to Voices 3 and get to visit with Frank's friend that he mentioned, Dr. Jason Cumming. He's a friend of us all, and highlight that. And I want to say thank you to our veteran, to our hero, because guess what? If you don't have freedom, which I think because we're a Native American community, we have a high value for freedom in every sense of the word, not just freedom physically, but freedom of thought, freedom of spirituality. Micheline, thank you for fighting for that freedom. What you did for our country and for our children, we can never repay you. But the hope is that by having you participate in these events, you see your sacrifices and your soldier sacrifices and the people you lost over there and the ones you love, and Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, Coast Guard, National Guard, Reserves, what you guys do as warriors, because our warriors don't ride on horses anymore. Well, they do if you're cavalry, but I mean, what most people know about Native American warriors is they have a war bonnet, they have a bow, a bow or a spear, and they're fighting. But we just learned it's not like that. A 5'3" lady from Lodge Grass can drive a tank, fly a helicopter, take it apart, put it back together, go deer hunting, shoot an M1, shoot an M16, probably 50 cal gas chamber loaded, and do it well, right? And survive. Our children need to see that. I'm so thankful. I just can't thank you all enough. Dr. Rush, none of us could do this without you have been there before. I think, man, Dr. Rush, you are now one of my new heroes. Okay, you really are. And I want to thank our behind the stage team. That was Stacy Klein, Gerardo Navarrete, Bonnie Chalette. You know, she's really working. They just got to go back to school. Stephanie Rothstein, she just got to go back to school. You know, Dr. Rush said the early 60s, you know, Air Force slogan, let's do something even if it's wrong, because there's always going to be people to tell us when we're wrong. But you guys are doing something right, something good, and something that is needed. And we're not waiting on anybody to do this. We're doing it. So thank you all for being a part of the Voices 2. I hope to stay in touch with you. I'm going to be tracking very closely the success that you all have. I encourage you to reach out. I encourage our viewers to reach out. You can go to ststevens.org, or you can go to the website and you can see all these folks on there and you can reach out. It's been a tremendous blessing to be here today with you, to learn from you. I learned so much, and I learned you don't get 10 recesses in kindergarten, Frank. You just don't get 10 recesses. But you know, we'll get the link for this video as soon as we do a little bit of editing on the sound and audio quality of the video, and we'll make sure you can get it to your websites. Della, I know you have a website, you have Twitter, so we'll make sure you have it. I know I just can't say enough good things about what you're doing. We don't have the time that I want right now, but that's okay. Thank you all. Please know you are valuable beyond words. Your work is meaningful and lasting, and you are the winds of change for our Native children and our Indigenous children and our communities. And I know, just to get to where all of you are, I know there were ups and downs. I know there were struggles. I know there were obstacles. It's obvious. But at the end of this conversation, I believe every struggle up and down I've been through, to have this today, well worth it. Well worth it. So thank you. I don't know if there's any closing thoughts that anybody wants to share. I see one of our superstar voices back there. We're going to show another video here in just a moment from Miss Jayla, Becky Brown's daughter. And guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for your wisdom, for your knowledge, for your time, for your sacrifices. And I pledge to help you in any way I can in your community, in any way that Global Google Education Group can help. We are here to support. And I'll say it in Michelin's language, aho. Hang out with us backstage for just a bit, guys, okay? Gerardo, would you show that video, and then we'll jump backstage, and I just have another couple words for our group. But thank you all. Thank you. It's wonderful to see you. Please just hang tight. Gerardo's gonna get that video. Who's that voice back there? We love that voice. Get him on the golf course, Frank.
Oh yeah, we will.
After the snow, of course. If you live up north, in some places still snow.
Here we go. Left ride.